Hi everyone, I'm EscoBlades from Xbox Game Zone, and this is a video interview for the game Sleeping Dogs. Now, I recently had a chance to go to Square Enix, check out the game, and chat to Dan Sochan, who is the producer of the game from United Front Games, the developer. Now, what follows is the video interview and some gameplay. Hope you enjoy the video. We're here with Dan Sochan, who is the producer on Sleeping Dogs. Thanks for talking to us.
No problem.
And we just wanted to get some questions. Obviously, you're releasing soon now. How's it feel? You know, you're finally at the home stretch.
Excited. Yeah, we're really excited. It's great seeing the feedback from the media, and we can't wait for all the fans of the game to finally get a chance to play it and bring it home and get online and be challenging their friends with all the different stats in the game and mission scoring. So it's great.
Awesome. Cool. Right. Let's jump into it then. With the development, which has been a bit of a shaky to say the least, and amongst sort of the games media, Sleeping Dogs has become known as the game that just won't die. Obviously, with everything with Activision and then Square Enix. But how far along were you in development before Activision decided to pull the plug?
We were pretty close to alpha, so a lot of the core elements, the features were all in the game. It's been amazing working with Square Enix. The additional time has really allowed us to polish the game, which is critical in an open world game, especially being a new IP as well. For fans of the game, great news is nothing had changed, nothing was lost. The same story, same cast, same characters, as it always was when we first started working on the game as a brand new IP, nicknamed Black Lotus. So all of that's remained the same, it's just the additional times really allowed us to polish and even add in some new features like the upgrade system, and as well as the online stats challenge modes. So nothing lost, lots of good stuff gained, and even to higher quality.
Okay, so it was a blessing in disguise, really.
It really was, yeah, and it's been a great partnership. So
awesome, cool. Can you give us a bit of a lowdown of the plot, just for those who haven't really been keeping up with coverage and stuff?
Sure. So Sleeping Dogs, it's an open world game set in Hong Kong, where you play as Wei Shen, an undercover police officer who is trying to take down the triads from the inside. And kind of the unique elements about the game is that we really focused on sort of the moment-to-moment gameplay, the hand-to-hand martial arts combat, the driving, the shooting, and wrapping that up with a very tight crime, gritty drama story that we find really compels the player to keep playing while still enjoying the open-world sandbox gameplay.
Okay, awesome.
Wait, what's going on, man? Shit, they're Mrs. Chu's. They're coming after everything we got. Who do these fucks think they are? Big Smiley's coming after us. I guess he figures we can't vote against him if we're dead.
Big Smile, Lee?
Yeah. You want out?
No, I'm with you all the way, boss. We're with you, Wayne. Just for once, I'd like to fight you. Wait,
up here! A lot of your team worked on Bully, which one title I actually enjoyed myself. Sort of how was that experience? Well, a lot of your team have worked on a lot of different things, which you can probably touch on. But how has that experience benefited this game in particular?
Yeah, I mean, our lead game designer, as well as a lot of our kind of core designers and programmers and animators all worked on Bully. And a couple of great benefits. One, obviously, several of the people having worked before on a title has great synergy. They really know how they work best together. A lot of really cool things that Bully did that was very unique, and we were able to kind of use those same experiences and bring a lot of fresh new elements to the open world genre. Like you said, we've worked on a lot of different titles. We're a pretty experienced team, and so we've worked at EA on the Need for Speed franchise for years. So our lead driving designer is as a veteran on that, so we're able to take those experiences and make the driving really feel like an impactful part of the game. Street racing, having the big jumps, all those moments, making it cinematic, but also having a great arcade driving feel.
Cool. Can you tell us how big the game is now? You've mentioned open world a few times, and that's what it's going to become known as. But a lot of people throw around the word open world, and then you still sort of have restrictions, as it were. And the game's set in Korea. That's correct, right?
Yes.
And
no, sorry, it's set in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong, my bad. How open world is it? Can you go pretty much anywhere?
It's fully open and explorable. The first couple of missions, we keep the player in sort of a fairly large area, sort of around the night market and around your headquarters, the Golden Koi restaurant. And the reason we keep that enclosed at the first little bit is so that we have the opportunity to teach the player about the combat mechanics, about the free running, and then after a couple of missions, then we open it up and the whole world is explorable at any time. It's a very, very large city. It takes, I can't even think of the exact amount of time, 5 to 10 minutes to drive across the city at full speed. And there's lots to explore within that, sort of with the Eastern versus Western cultures meeting in Hong Kong. There's a lot of beauty in the architecture, and you'll have this brand new skyscraper right beside a 1,000-year-old temple. So you're able to kind of free run and explore each of these, find all the different collectibles. And as well, it is Hong Kong. It's about the harbors and the water, so you can get into a boat and explore around. There's hidden coves and sort of dens that you can go into. That we have some cool collectibles as well as some missions later on that would take you there, and offshore gambling dens.
All right, that's awesome. So really, really huge game.
Yeah, there's a lot for the player to do and explore.
Looking forward to it. Let's talk about the triads now. There's tons of references. Chinese criminal underworld and stuff. Lots of movies and lots of video games have touched on it. What sort of references kind of like have influenced this, and how much research were you able to do? Were you able to get any triads members or any of the police to sort of help during development?
Yeah, well, something we wanted to do with the game, we didn't want it to be a parody. We wanted it to be very serious and also be very authentic. So we did a lot of research, obviously watching films, reading books. We did numerous trips to Hong Kong. And while we were there, we actually met with triad members.
Okay.
We met with former undercover police officers as well as the head of the triad task force. And what's sort of unique about the triads, they're known as being ruthless. Their weapon of choice is a cleaver, which in itself I think is very intimidating. But they've been around for over 400 years. They're very much sort of ingrained within the society. And their initial purpose was to actually kind of rise up and against sort of the emperor at the time, who and the sort of the upper ruling class, to fight for sort of the common everyday people. And obviously over the last 100 years that's evolved into more sort of criminal activity. But it was interesting in our research, and one of our Hong Kong contacts was asking about starting up a business in North America, and kind of said, what are average employee salaries, how much is rent, how much do you pay in hydro, what do you pay to your local gang monthly, how much are your food costs? We're like, well, hold on, what was that about the gangs? And for them, that's just commonplace. So it was really interesting for us, and we tried to capture that in the game with the way that we tell the story, that having a great actor like James Hong as the voice of Uncle Po, the triad head, and he talks a lot about respect and loyalty, and that you truly are a sort of a family as part of the triads because it has this long-standing history. Okay,
that's good to hear. We've seen a little bit of the combat system, and I had mentioned to you that it's kind of like the free flow system that's present in the Batman games. At the same time, you have a lot of sort of environmental props, as you call them, where you can bash someone's head into a moving fan, which just never gets old. So was that difficult to sort of like mesh those two together, because they're kind of different systems? You have one where it's sort of like about the timing of a button presses, and then you have this system where you just grab someone, shove them into something, and then watch. It's kind of like a quick time event, isn't it? So how difficult was it to kind of gel those two together?
Yeah, it was a focus for us right from the very beginning that the combat, hand-to-hand martial arts combat, was going to be the core of our game. That's what's, I think, very unique about our title. It's not just about shooting, we have that as well, but the combat is a very fluid and intuitive system. And so we've had a team dedicated to that, an exceptionally talented and senior veteran team working on that from the beginning, and that knowing that we wanted to have these combat props as well. So to kind of seamlessly transition in this very quick, easy moving combat to all of a sudden get close enough that it would trigger the system was a challenge, but we've been working on it for years to get it feeling as seamless as possible, and we're really happy with where it is. And there's something quite satisfying about, and strategic as well, but you look and you've got all these different enemy classes, trying to pick out which one you want to use the combat prop on, because it can only often be used once, to maybe take out one of the tougher enemies so you can focus on the other ones. We wanted to recreate that feel we've seen in great martial arts films where the hero is kind of dropped amongst 20, 30 enemies who have weapons, knives and cleavers and crowbars and nunchucks. How could you possibly defeat them all? And they use their agility, their athleticism, and their martial arts combat, and use the environment around them to really turn it against their enemies and overcome them.
Okay, cool. Following on from the previous question, is the combat system going to be upgradable? And if so, sort of, can you tell us how players will go about doing that?
So what we implemented were these jade statues. So there's a bit of backstory. Your martial arts instructor, when you were younger, you go back to visit him, and he tells you had this sort of prized collection of jade statues. They've been stolen from him, and they've been sort of scattered across the city. As you find them, you return them to him, and in return, he'll teach you a new combat move.
Okay.
And within that, there's a tree as well. So you and I both played the game for 4 or 5 hours. Depending on which moves we've selected in the tree, how many jade statues we've collected, our combat styles can actually be quite different. So you'll learn things like arm breaks, leg breaks, spinning roundhouses. There's a wide variety of different moves you can learn.
Okay, good. Like I mentioned earlier, you got the environmental takedowns, and some of them pretty brutal. Blood's flying everywhere. I think it was the one with the spinning fan, and you just shove the guy's, he's trying to resist, and you just shove his head into it, which is great. Well, great for me anyway. But there's been a lot of talk about violence and glorification of violence in the industry and stuff. How do you respond to that, especially with a game like this, which there's going to be quite a bit of it, and it's in your face? I know it's appropriately age rated and stuff, but do you think this game, or you guys, could come in the firing line for glorifying violence, as it were? Or?
We've tried to make the violence in the game generally not excessive. Some of the combat props are a little bit more violent. We've had most of those later in the game, and what we've tried to do in that case is the intensity of the violence sort of escalates as it reflects Wei's current situation. He's deeper and deeper undercover against the most vicious and violent gang in the world, and he's at risk of actually being exposed. Some think he is an undercover cop, and so he's fighting for his life, and at some points they're torturing him, and he's almost like a wounded animal, and he's just trying to survive. But we've also tried to put in a lot of aspects that curb the violence. Hurting innocent people, you're penalized in the game. It's not just like you can run them over and you get some additional money. It's the exact opposite. You actually lose cop experience. So we've tried not to make that an integral part of the game or even reward the player, but do the opposite.
So it's needed violence as opposed to just go to town on anyone, really.
That's exactly it.
Okay, awesome. How long, this is a question everyone asks, but how long will the game take to play through, just on a normal playthrough, no side missions or side quests or anything? So
on a full playthrough, completing the mission first time through, just key story missions, is probably some 16 to 18 hours.
Okay.
And then with all the additional side content, we've got over 120 different secondary things, from dates, jobs like debt collection, stealing cars, going on dates with girls, doing favors, some that are more cop-oriented, some that are more triad-oriented, doing cop cases where you're gathering evidence, photo surveillance, wiretaps, all those kind of things to build up a case and get someone arrested. With all of that content, you're looking at 40 hours plus of gameplay.
All right, cool. Okay, and finally, what over here? If you had a group of undecided gamers, sat here right now instead of me, and you had the chance to sell them on the game, they sat on the fence, what would be sort of like the main selling point you'd throw at them to say, go out and spend your money on this?
I think the biggest thing we've seen from people is they get the controller in their hands and they really understand what we've tried to do by making the moment-to-moment gameplay as exciting as possible. So the street racing and the driving is really fun with a variety of different vehicles, from boats to sports cars to motorcycles, and then making the missions feel as kind of as tight as a linear game would be, and a very compelling story that allows the player to empathize with Wei, what he goes through. It's not just glorifying the violence and him being a tough guy, but seeing the emotional and physical toll it's taking on him. Wrapping all this up with a great hand-to-hand martial arts combat system really allows the player to experience Hong Kong fully and see an open world game in sort of a very different light.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's pretty much it for the questions. Big thank you for talking to us, and
No problem.
you know,
Yeah,
best
great
of
to
luck.
be here.
Best of luck with the launch.
Thank you very much.